Today's guest is Dr. Brad Montagne, who has battled his own chronic illness as a young child. He began managing his own illness by making his own diet and lifestyle changes when he was young. And then in his adult life, he conquered his own case of Lyme disease, and I believe it's Babesia. He's also been a researcher and a pioneer, functional medicine doctor for well over 30 years. He is known for having one of the highest rates of helping restore health for people with the worst cases. So even the ones that the expert care has failed. So, Dr. Brad, thank you very much for being on. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. It's been a day of running, and I'm finally sitting down. I don't sit much, but I finally get to just sit down, and that's good. So
Okay, good. Well, as I was telling you off air, I'm like, this is either going to put a great cap on your day or it's going to ruin it completely. So we're we're about to find out in which direction this is going to go.
yeah, I don't think you could. I don't think you have the intention of ruining my day, and it takes a lot of intention to do that with me.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I agree. I don't have the intention to ruin your day, so that is true. Yeah, so I mean, listen, I know you're someone that supports a lot of people, through their journeys. So it's kind of an opportunity for this to reverse and have somebody support you in yours. So why don't you give me a breakdown of essentially like what can I support you with today?
Um, I I backed off on marketing. It's getting close to a year ago, not quite, but close to a year ago. We bought a new house last Thanksgiving, and I've been renovating that. Took some real major issues. I used to be a custom builder, and I've got a lot of hats. I do a lot of things, so I do pretty fancy custom things with homes. And I've been in the thick of it, working with that. I'm getting toward the end. But I will once I get a little bit farther, I'm going to gear up into a whole different aspect of marketing that I've really not done before, and uh, hopefully make it a lot functional and a lot less stressful. So that's kind of where I'm at as far as that goes. I've been managing people and running businesses since, well, 50 years. That's a long time. So you learn a lot, you bend a lot. It's like parenting. You start off with ideological things, and as it evolves, you have to change and modify those things because not everything we idealistically look at works the way we hoped it would, and you have to learn to bend with all that. So that's kind of where I'm at with things.
Got it. So basically, okay, what I'm hearing is the main issue is like I took a break from marketing and then I restarted again. It didn't really pan out the way that I was hoping or it did before. Um, and then in that space, I'm also doing a lot of different things. So just so that I'm clear on context, like is this is about the functional medicine business. Is that accurate?
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Okay.
Which um, with the success rate we have, it's almost unrealistically high. There's only two people in the industry that claim to be in the same ballpark that we are, but they claim to get people free of Lyme disease. We restore health to the people with the worst chronic illness problems out there. And it should auto generate, but it never does. It's funny with healthcare. People just aren't thankful like you would think they would be.
So when you say they're not thankful, what does that actually mean? Like, how do
Um,
you interpret
it,
that?
it's almost every other profession. Yeah, you can get reviews and testimonials and things like that. It's very, very difficult to do that with healthcare. People just they just don't.
So
And
meaning like you would work with somebody for whatever amount of time you work with them, you get them good results, like you solve the medical issue that they had, and then the issue is you don't like they don't want to do a testimonial for you after that. Is that accurate?
Yeah, people will commonly say they will, but they don't. Don't get around to it. You ask them several times, you can't be too much of a pain. But the common thing that people say with what we do is we gave them their life back. We work with people that are too debilitated to function oftentimes, and they've got a life back. They can go back to work. They can go back to relating. They get their life back. And you would think, wow, somebody be like that, be thankful. They'd really want to do quite a bit, but that's just not the case with healthcare.
So is it that they hesitate to publicly state like that they had this issue and that you helped them? Or like, is it a process thing of like, okay, well, when you're on the call with them or whatever, and it's like they're telling you this win, like, is it just okay? Can I just record that right now? Like, would you be cool with that? Like, I guess, just explain to me more context what the hurdle is, because it sounds like you do great work, and there's just a disconnect of why people don't want to share that.
Yeah, like one thing, I hooked up with somebody a while ago who, if they do online feedback, is the way they call it, they get somebody will plant 10 trees in their honor in a war-torn, um, deforested nation around the world. Um, people think, wow, that'd be really great, but and they respond like they're going to do it, but the amount of people that do it is pretty small. If you ask for some people to do videos, you can't necessarily do that on a call because we're on phones most of the time. You can't do videos, so that doesn't work really well. So you ask people to do videos, and same thing, yeah, I'll do it, but the amount of people that actually do is pretty small.
And I mean, in general, you're gonna have like, it doesn't matter what business you're in, but there's only going to be a small percentage of clients that are ever going to leave reviews and testimonials after the fact. So I'm just saying, like, is this really like, could this just be a process issue where you just improve processes to be more on like video or some sort of digital thing where you can record more in the moment?
That's a really good question. I was talking to the person who set up the program with planting the trees, and they work with a lot of businesses doing a lot of things. And out of their own mouth, with their own statistics, they say people working with health issues, it's the hardest to get those. So the percentage is the lowest. The ones I get are phenomenal. They're absolutely amazing. Uh,
So again, I mean, there could be process solutions here, but how many testimonials do you have right now that are phenomenal? Like, is it like I have like three, even though we worked with hundreds of clients, or is it like I have 30 and like, I guess just contextual
um,
where we're at?
I I probably got close to 10 video that are really amazing. Um, and I only started going after videos a little while ago. So that's not bad. That's really not bad. The amount of
Yeah,
written
I
ones I
mean,
have
10 would
is,
be enough to make whatever, like, it's solid enough to make even like a campaign. It's solid enough to highlight as social proof on a website. So I'm just curious, in your mind, like, why is that not enough?
um, it's funny how different people are. This thing of social proof is a much bigger issue today than I think it ever has been in history. And with that, it there's just so much that wraps around that. Um, some people, that's all they want to see. It depends on individuals, and I think you know that with business. Some people are more testimonial driven, some people are more intellectually driven, some people are more results driven, and you've got to mix all those up so you have all those parts for everybody. And that way they have a choice on what they want to look like. Smorgasbord, like on a website, something like that.
Hmm.
So
So I guess even in that instance, if somebody is the social proof, type of client or prospect, Like what in your eyes then is enough testimonials?
It's not so much my eyes. I look at statistic people like the guy that does that tree planting program. Um, he says there's a breakthrough in business, and I forget what the number is, but it's over 20. And that's not my field, but it's his.
Right. So I mean, even if that is an apples to orange comparison, like it's not going to be helpful. And I guess it's like if you're the one that has issues with the testimonials, then in many ways, then that's like then it is about you, right? Because I could look at it and be like, well, 10's pretty good, right? But like if you're feeling like it's not pretty good, then that's the only part that actually matters. So kind of like which is it? Like is there a part of you that's comparing to other people? Is a part of you that's like I need more? I guess where is your head at in relation to the testimonials?
Um, to me, I'm the same place with you. I think 10's pretty good. But people looking at statistics that I've talked to in business, they say you need a whole bunch more than that. I don't
Right.
know.
But
I
like I
don't,
mean, people
that's
looking
not
at statistics in business, like they're not also your prospects. So like is it
exactly.
your prospects that are telling you I need more proof, or is it some person telling you in general business stats you need more proof?
It's not been my prospects.
Okay, so then why are you, I guess basically why are you taking the authority of somebody who's giving you general numbers? Because you know they don't always apply to your specific situation. And if in your specific situation, it's actually your prospects that aren't saying they need more, it kind of like why create a problem out of something that doesn't seem like it's actually a problem just because somebody was a seeming expert might even give you good advice, but just not a good advice for you.
That's a good point. That's really a good point, and it might not be. Uh, I've talked to some people who've looked at some of the testimonials I have, and they go, "Wow, they've never seen any that are that good. Ones I have are good, life-changing stories." So that might be okay, and that's what are really, those are the kind that are good to foster. You, it's better to have quality than quantity, and
Yeah,
you
I
understand that.
definitely agree with you. So then I think the follow-up question then is like, okay, well, if you're saying, okay, well, that's actually a good point. I didn't think of it that way. Like whatever your reaction to it is, then my follow-up would be, well, if you're looking at yourself as the leader of the business, then where's the disconnect between your own self-trust to be like, okay, well, I'm gonna trust like what I'm seeing in front of me versus like some random expert. I'm not saying don't go to experts, definitely do, but it always has to run through a filter of your own self-trust. So where is your own self-trust to basically be like, well, I feel like this is enough and it is enough. So I guess kind of what lands for you with that reflection?
That's a profound question. It really is, and it's a really a good question. And I think the only way that somebody like me could look at a metric like that honestly is, okay, so how many people inquire and actually how many people go through a process of wanting to dialogue?
Yeah, so I think that's a much better personalized metric for you and your business.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
what we do and the way we do it is so radically different than the industry that that alone is going to be a huge filter because people are not used to what we do, how we approach things. They're intrigued by the knowledge and the interaction and the personal care, the history, the stats. I'm the only one in the industry that can talk to people and tell them how long it's going to take to heal from a multitude of different things. I'm the only one that's out there. I'm the only one that has guarantees. Um, but what we do is not something that all the masses are going to run to.
Mhm. Well, I mean, you also don't need the masses because you deal with the extreme cases. So by definition, they're not going to
Yeah.
be mass. So if that is also accurate, then like what is like if you boil down your marketing issue, like what actually is it?
Um, that's a good thing. I've tried all kinds of things. I've thrown a ton of money at marketing in a whole bunch of different ways. I've tried Facebook ads. I've tried YouTube ads. YouTube cut off healthcare quite a while ago. Facebook cut off healthcare as far as advertising goes. I've worked with Rudy Maher doing stuff and spent a ton of money and didn't get a penny out of it. I've tried all these different aspects, and right now I've been working. I do the best being in front of people. I used to not be able to talk in public, and it was a miss ministry trip into the middle of Siberia. The Lord set me free from talking to people, and since then I'm one of the few people that could connect with individuals in an audience of thousands. Um, yeah, it's a huge dynamic. It really is. If I can get in front of people, it's really, really easy. But working distance, the fickleness of like webinars and things like that, and trying to get people to show up in that it it's not what it used to be when it first came out.
Sure. So if you look at historically, like how did you get the clients that you have worked with so far?
Most of them is getting in front of people one way or another.
Okay. So if it's so whether it's speaking, whether it's like live face-to-face networking, like all of the above.
Yeah, I'm all anybody that's really doing their own thing with business is always marketing. Always. You meet somebody on the street and you strike up conversation, and it's not to shove a business card in their hand, but it's to try and generate dialogue and interest to filter out anybody who might be interested in what you're doing. So it can't be a down your throat kind of thing. It has to
Sure.
be one of those sensitive conversations that lets people know you are hearing their voice, you're connecting with them, you're identifying with them, and that you actually have some solutions to what their issues are. I can explain to people physiologically why almost anything happens inside the body, and nobody does that.
Right. So all of the pieces that make you a really good practitioner, which is the not just the technical knowledge in being able to provide the solution, but also the being there for the person and connecting with the person and like listening to them and hearing them and like actually treating the person, not just like, the disease or whatever. Like that's been your success thus far. So I guess kind of my follow-up question to that, similar to the whole like which expert are you trusting, is like if historically this is what's worked for you, why are you diverting, or what would happen if you reallocated all of this time, effort, and money that you're spending towards these online advertising platforms into doing what you do best and what's historically worked, which is being in front of people?
That's what I am going to be shifting toward soon.
Okay.
Um, Being on podcasts is some way to get in front of people in a really a non-threatening manner, and it really spreads a uh, an ability for people to see you in a much larger scale than you can do on your own. I'm going to get into homecomings with I'm going to try and get into some fields of uh, doctors in small groups, talking to them about things and get some referral funnels going because we deal with the nightmares that everybody wants to get rid of. They want to dump them. And it's a lot different interaction than what I've done before and trying to find different public groups can get a hold of and get in front of those. That's where I'm shifting very soon. I'm
Got it. So
setting that stage.
if that is where you're moving to, do you actually have a marketing problem?
That's primarily what the marketing plan is that's what I am going to, that's what I'm setting up, that's what I'm moving toward. I just gotta finish some of the home things so I can be free from that one, and then I can put more focus on that.
Right. So I think that that's kind of the crux of it, which is like in terms of clarity on like what's the actual problem, like you're pretty clear that okay, I try this online thing. This is not necessarily for me. Historically, I do best when I'm in person talking to someone. So I got to be in a position to talk to more people in person. And I want to do that. And what's in the way of me doing more of that is actually just the other obligations that I currently have. So it's like if there is a focus towards solving a particular problem, it's like, okay, well, how do I make that transition quicker versus like I have a marketing issue? Because it's like if you go down the road of I have a marketing issue, then you're going to go down the road of how do I optimize for a game that I don't really want to play, which is this online, webinar type of game.
Well, something's interesting is the bulk of the people we work with are long distance. In the last year, we started working with people globally. Um, so there has to be ways to contact those. And podcasts have opened that door quite a bit. Uh, so that's one thing. Join some groups where I try and get some contacts and get on more shows about things like that. And the thing that's amazing with those is talking to the people who do the podcast. They have consistently said I'm one of the best guests they've ever had. 'Cause I've got a ton of content. I'm pretty easy to talk to. I don't steal conversations and any of that from anybody. I've got a huge deep well where if a subject matter changes, I can just flow with it. I'm really good with Q and A's, and people in your position they love that because not many people do. A lot of people jump on. It's just an advertising thing, and it offends people.
Yeah, and I think that's like it just goes back down to if you're spending all this money and time and energy diving into something that doesn't really align with who you are and how you want to do business, it's like what would happen if you reallocated that money towards these other avenues, like or whatever, just easy math. Like if you're spending $1,000 on ads a month, what if I spend $1,000 to either, pay to be on somebody else's audience via podcast or whatever, paid to be in the room with a particular mastermind, a group of people, right? Like that's to me seems like the fastest path to get you what you want versus try and go against who you are and figure out this thing that probably isn't up your alley. Like to me, that's really what this comes down to.
And that is, I'm pretty much have come to that same point right now. I've been assembling the pieces to do that, working with people who are good in the industry about doing that, finding ways to contact different people in doing that. I've had to gear up because we had a bunch of things like we lost water and you got some expedient things that you have to deal with. But at the same time, I've been gearing up, uh, not to the degree that I'm planning on doing, but I've been gearing up and it's been picking things up as I'm winding down on the one, and I'm just gonna be able to focus more time. I want to spend like a day, you know, at least a day just trying to make contact very soon with different groups that I can get in front of.
I mean, that makes sense to me. Um, it's kind of like I think if there's anything I can reflect to you, it's like, and we went back and forth on that trust piece, like the self-trust piece.
Hmm.
Like there's almost an element of like, is there a part of you that bypasses that self-trust to kind of acquiesce to some seeming expert? Or putting the seeming expert on a pedestal above kind of your own intuitive sense of where you need to go. It's
Um,
almost like the best
yeah.
thing I could offer is just permission slip to just trust yourself to like actually be like, hey, what if I just tried it this way? Because what I do is extremely unique and I get unique results as a result of it. So maybe the way that I go to market should also reflect my own uniqueness, you know? So what lands for you with that?
Um, that's right where I'm at. I'm really rethinking that whole thing. I've taken, I've been into copywriting school a few different times, and I hooked up in that back when Clayton Makepeace and Rick Jeffrin were making the video sales letters. It was the thing of the day, and but those don't work hardly at all anymore. And if I would have changed back then, that could have worked, but there are other things in the way at that point in time. And I'm down to exactly what you said. I want to get in front of people in a bunch of different ways. I did a radio show, and that is difficult because you can't see somebody to connect with, and you gotta almost fabricate who you think is on the audience and talk to them. And it's a weird media to try and interact with. Uh, I think if you try and do TV, at least you got people in the room to do something. And if you're in podcasts, you always have somebody on the other end where you can field your ability to connect with them, and that's just absolutely huge to be able to have the feedback. So being able to do that in front of people live is where I absolutely shine the best.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, I think in many ways, if there's anything that I can do for you, is to just kind of give you the permission slip to be and to do what you already know from this perspective. So I think you're already leaning into it. You're going towards it. So if, you know, and give you confirmation that that feels like the accurate direction. I mean, I can offer you that. Um, but it doesn't seem like there's much else to kind of handle with this whole marketing piece. So, like, does that feel complete for you, or is there still something left outstanding?
Um, it does. It really does. My wife and I have talked about that, and my wife says you always do the best when you're in front of people. You always generate the biggest interest. One of the first talks I did publicly, I did in a small town. A lady came up after that talk, and she says, "You are one of the five best speakers I ever heard in my life." And I look at her kind of funny. Well, who are you? She says, "I'm a journalist. I spent my life, the last at least 20 years of my life in journalism. I've been all over the world." Oh, so what you just said is it actually has some clout to it. So why do you say I'm one of those? She goes, "You just talked for an hour. Nobody moved. You open up for Q&A. It's an hour later. Nobody's moved. Nobody's left. You have their attention just riveted to who you are and what you're doing and what you're interacting with. It's just nobody can do that. You're connecting with people one-on-one on the audience, and nobody's leaving. 2 hours later, nobody can do that. Oh, that's interesting.
Yep, I think that's the confirmation from the universe as well of like that there is something here for you. I think kind of reality is giving you the nod that this is what you need to lead into. So like in many ways, like I'm like, is there anything else I can help you with? Because I think you kind of know your solution. You just, I think, have to take ownership of it and just lean fully into it.
Yeah, I believe so. Because most of the other pieces, since we're small, you got to handle too much, and if we expanded, that could change. And the vision of trying to actually start a school to train some docs how to do what I do, because when I'm gone, this is going to be lost. And one of my good friends is one of the number one functional medicine, different part of the country, and he has no idea what I do. Has no idea how we get the results we do. I was told as one of the top three docs in a different part of the country we live in right now, and the other two cannot touch what we do.
So, I mean, that could also be a different avenue, which is like literally connecting with the functional medicine doctors that you do or don't know. Like you said, getting their extreme cases to refer out to you. So it's again, right? It goes back to you connecting directly with people. It's like all roads lead to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So it's
and
it's a
that's
good
where
spot
I'm.
to be in.
Yeah, because I think once I get some contacts with that and start to do that, um, I think the doors will open up for pretty much all the rest of the vision that's there. I'm at an age where I don't want to put in the hours that other people do. I'm just not going to go there
Yeah,
again.
I can totally agree. And probably with your expertise, you don't even need to. Um, so yeah, I mean, is there anything else that I can support you
Um, I'm not thinking of anything else right now because that's really the piece. Once that piece is in place, everything flows, everything becomes easy. It's no longer a stress. You get a certain backlog depending on what's there, and then you have liberty to do other things.
correct? And I mean, there is going to be some forward motion is going to have to happen to kind of get that critical mass to get to that point. But again, if history has proven that it'll get you there, it's just a matter of repeating it long enough. So yeah, I mean, if that's complete for you, I'm happy to support you with anything else. If there's nothing else, I'm happy for you to close it, like close the episode for us. So what resonates most with you? Is there something else?
Um, it's an interesting thing. As I said earlier, you um, dialoguing is a huge way to help fix your perspectives on a lot of stuff, and that's really what's been on the top of the list of what we've been conversing about right now. That has been the top. It's like, okay, I'm sick and tired of beating my head against the wall, doing all these things that just don't fit. So I need to do things that fit me the way that I work, that attract the different kind of people that really want this, and the kind of people we deal with. It's a hot potato. Every clinician that has the people we deal with wants to give them to somebody because they can't do anything with them.
Yeah. Well, sometimes the fastest way to get rid of the pain is to stop bashing your head up against the wall. And, you know, we could all use that advice sometimes. But like you said, sometimes
Yeah,
you just need somebody to reflect it back to you. And yeah, that's what I was getting at with like the whole self-trust piece. Your wife's reflecting to you the same thing. Reality's reflecting to you the same thing in terms of the feedback you're getting. And I think you're just getting lost in the weeds of, other people's opinions on what metrics you need, what is the path to success. It's like if your path is already unique in how you get results, own the fact that the path to getting the right people into your world is probably going to be unique to you as well. And that's a beautiful thing when you own it, but it's a nightmare when you go against it. And I think you're kind of in that limbo state of just owning it. It's like, and I see it, but I haven't owned it yet. Because there's been circumstantial pieces to it, but then there's also just been um, me kind of getting my own way pieces. And I think you're starting to let go of those and see, yeah, like it's worked. I have evidence that it's worked. I light up the most when it's worked. Reality has told me that it works. I just now need to go own it and do it full tilt. So that's
yeah,
what I can
yeah.
reflect back to you.
The talks that I used to do were in like health stores and different things like that, some of the most effective ones. But yeah, people always are offended in those things because think they're going to get everything for nothing, and they complain to store owners. So you realize, okay, I can use those places to advertise flyers, but I can't do talks there. I've got to do it in independent places. So that's another side of the puzzle. It's like, okay, so where do you find those places where you can
Well, I
meet
mean,
the
even
dog?
in that instance, just because somebody's offended, like, was the store owner unhappy with you and they
Oh,
didn't want you to come back?
um, people that are offended, they'll go talk to the management and they'll
Right. But I mean, then is management coming to talk to you and being like, hey, like, we can't have you doing this type of thing here? Or they're just
they
take the
just
complaint and move on with their life.
don't let you come back because of what those things are. So, it's an interesting thing.
Yeah. Personally, because you do deal with, it's like by definition, because you're dealing with people with chronic illness, there's going to be a level of powerlessness and victimhood in their
Hmm.
consciousness of just dealing with that for so long. If you are making, like, you can't be talking to the victims, you got to be talking to the ones that don't want to be victims anymore.
That's exactly it. And it's something I talk about with the people on social media. Most of the people on social media are experts about being sick and they have no idea how to restore their health.
Correct. So it's kind of like part of your message and in part of your own resiliency is going to be owning the fact that victims are very easily triggered when somebody holds the mirror to the fact that they're being a victim to their condition. They're over-identifying with their sickness, they're over-identifying with their powerless, like they're not letting go of that. You can't help those people until they're ready to be helped anyway. So it's almost like part of your leadership in this is to just speak essentially as a lighthouse to the ones that actually want to get better while letting the victim ones, the ones not ready for change, crash against you like waves, but they don't really move you. Because if you let those people move you, you're going to distort the message to the people that actually need to hear you. And I think that's
Good
also
point.
part of that whole like equation.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, yeah,
Okay,
I think what you said is really insightful, really helpful. So,
good. Well, I'm glad it resonates because at the end of the day, if this is the work that you do and you do it well, it's like more people need to hear about it, right? So I think
yeah.
between that and then leaning into what you're naturally good at, it's kind of like where your sweet spot is going to be. Um, yeah. So does that feel complete for you, or is there still something left outstanding?
I think so. It's, the piece of that are making contacts. You can do your own stage or you can use other people's stages, and it needs to be a combination of both. It
Yeah,
really does.
I would agree. So yeah, I mean, listen, if that feels complete for you, why don't you just close us off and let everybody know, who to find you or where to find you, who's the best person to find you. Floor is yours for that.
Okay. Easiest way to find us. I'll say this. We specialize primarily in candida and leaky gut because it's the root to almost all chronic illness. It's what creates autoimmune issues, hormone dysregulation, metabolic dysfunction, and all that. And with that, we also work with Lyme disease at a healing rate that's just phenomenally high. Um, Easiest way to get a hold of us is through our website. It's healthfullyu.com, HEALTHFULLY, the letter U.com. It's got my contacts. It's full of videos. It's got a couple of books on there that I've written. There's just a ton of content on there. You can find testimonials, ways to get a hold of us to do consults and all that. So that's really the easiest way to get a hold of us is healthfullyu.com. It's got our phone number in there and everything else. And I think you can tell from our interaction I'm pretty easy to talk to. I'm one of the few docs that actually talks to people. I got years ago when I was in grad school, 80-year-old doctor came in and he gave us a lecture on how to take history. And he says, when somebody sit down in front of somebody, so you're on level with them, and ask them, what do you think is going on? And what do you think is causing it? And then shut up and listen, because 75% of the time they're right. And almost no doctors do that. History is part of the puzzle. It really is.
100%.
So that's how to get a hold of us. And if you're struggling with some chronic things that you can't fix, fertility is a real common one that is really easy to deal with. So if you're struggling with anything, reach out to us and we'll see what root causes are and how you need to go about dealing with that.
Love it. Well, Dr. Brad, as always, thank you very much for allowing yourself to be witnessed in this way and share all of that. We'll include all that stuff in the show notes. Yeah, for everybody else listening, we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks for the invite. I appreciate it.